At only 19 years old, he ordered the retreat of his men back to a more defendable position, stayed behind on his own to fight against German tanks and infantry, manned a 50 cal machine gun on top of a burning tank destroyer, killing or wounding around 50 Germans. Once he ran out of ammo, he fell back to his men in a retreated position, joined them, and led them through a successful counterattack. Today we're going to be talking about the most decorated World War II soldier ever, Audie Murphy. First, we have to talk about his early life. It plays an important role in what shaped the man that Audie Murphy would become. Murphy grew up poor and would play an important role in his family's survival, even at a young age. In an interview with one of his sisters, she remembers that Audie had obtained a .22 rifle and would go hunting. He would kill rabbits and squirrel to help feed his family. She went as far as to say that him being able to hunt for food would be one of the only reasons that they were alive to this day. Murphy would have to quit school in just the 5th grade. He would pick cotton and do other jobs around the farm for only $1 a day. And if you've never worked on a farm before, I highly encourage you to go volunteer at any farm for just a couple of hours just to see how difficult of a job it is. He was doing this in the 5th grade just to help provide for his family. Murphy's dad would completely abandon the family, and his mother would pass away on May of 1941 when he was only 16 years old. Murphy was only 17 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. He would try to join the military, but due to his baby face and very small stature, he got turned down everywhere he went. This wasn't uncommon at the time. Americans came out in full force to enlist in the military after the attack. Many people tried to join, even those that were under the age of 18. They wanted to defend their country. There's a reason these folks are referred to as the greatest generation. Eventually, Murphy was able to join the Army. Murphy would start his military career off strong. He would do great during training, excelling at bayonet training and his shooting. Murphy would be in the 15th Regiment, or better known as the Can-Do Regiment. One of the most decorated World War II soldiers was about to be attached to one of the best fighting regiments. It was a match made in heaven. Murphy would first join the war efforts in North Africa. While his regiment would arrive too late to see any combat in North Africa, their training didn't stop. The regiment was always preparing for the next battle, and they would need it for the brutal fighting that would take place in Sicily, Italy, and France. His first fighting would take place in the invasion of Sicily. While on patrol, Murphy would observe 2 officers trying to flee on horseback. He would kneel down, raise up his M1 Garand, fire 2 shots, and quickly land 2 kills. Murphy was to be a part of the amphibious landing at Anzio. However, he was sick and running a fever at 105. At first, he didn't want to go to sick bay and leave his fellow soldiers, but his superiors made him, causing him to miss the initial beach landing. Murphy's good friend Joe Seja would be killed during the beach landing. Joe would be one of 2 friends he would dedicate his book To Hell and Back for. While in Anzio, Murphy and a few other soldiers would occupy a farmhouse so that they could keep an eye on the road to see German movement. On March 2nd, Murphy seen a column of around 20 German tanks. He called in some artillery fire, and on their second go-around, they were able to cripple the lead tank. Now, in order to keep the Germans from being able to easily repair the tank, Murphy and a few soldiers crawled down to within a couple of 100 yards of the tank. From there, Murphy told the others to stay behind while he continued to crawl towards the tank. He was able to use some rifle grenades, finish destroying the tank, but in the process, the Germans heard all this taking place. They started shooting at Murphy and his men. They were able to retreat through a ditch and get the heck out of there. Murphy would be awarded his first Bronze Star for these actions. Murphy would earn a second Bronze Star on May 8, 1944 for his continued bravery and efforts in the Anzio battle. Next, Murphy would be a part of the amphibious landing at Yellow Beach in France. And it is here he would earn his Distinguished Service Cross. Murphy and his men would be ambushed by German soldiers. Murphy would take control of a machine gun, push forward, return fire on the Germans. He would be joined by his friend Laddie Tipton. From here, they would continue to take turns pushing forward, pushing into the German position. At one point, the Germans pretended to surrender. Laddie pushed forward to take some prisoners, and the Germans opened fire, killing Laddie. From here, Murphy would go crazy. He pushed forward by himself, killing 6 Germans, wounding 2, and taking 11 more prisoner. Murphy would later state that this was one of only a couple of times that he openly cried, and Laddie Tipton was the second friend that he dedicated his book To Hell and Back after. Murphy's first of two Silver Stars would take place at the Lawmet Quarry. Murphy spotted a German machine gun position that had him and his unit pinned down. Murphy would crawl on his own to the position, throw 2 grenades, killing 4 and wounding 3, and neutralizing the position. 3 days after taking out the machine gun position that earned him his Silver Star, he would earn an oak leaf cluster for the Silver Star. Murphy would crawl alone towards a German-held position. While moving alone, he would use his radio to help guide artillery towards the German position. While this was taking place, Murphy was under heavy fire for over an hour. His actions here resulted in the death of 15 Germans and the wounding of 35 more, allowing him and his unit to secure the objective. Murphy would receive a battlefield commission to second lieutenant at only 19 years old. He only accepted the commission after he worked it out that he could stay with his men. A fellow soldier once joked with Murphy, saying that if he ever accepted a battlefield commission, that he hoped he would get his ass shot off. The crazy part to all this, not even 2 weeks later, Murphy would get shot in the right hip by a German sniper. And in the exact same hip, he would develop gangrene, resulting in him having to get 9 inches of flesh cut out of his right hip. Not even this would stop Murphy, though. He would once again return to the battlefield. On January 26, 1945, at the Colmar Pocket in France, the Germans launched a counterattack on Murphy and Company's position with tanks and infantry. Murphy had his company fall back to the woods to form a defensive line. Instead of falling back with them, he stayed up front by himself to direct artillery fire and return fire with his M1 Garand. Nearby was a M10 tank destroyer. The Germans landed a direct hit on the destroyer, causing it to catch on fire. Murphy would climb on top of the burning destroyer, take control of the 50 cal machine gun, return fire on the Germans, all the while continuing to call in artillery. Murphy would do this for around an hour while under heavy fire from the Germans and exposed from 3 different angles. The Germans were throwing everything at Murphy that they could, but he stayed on top and manned that 50 cal machine gun. The Germans would even try to flank Murphy through a nearby ditch. However, Murphy quickly noticed and mowed them down with the 50 cal machine gun. The Germans were all over his position. At times they were getting within 10 yards of him. Eventually Murphy would run out of ammo and he would have to fall back to his men. From here they organized a counterattack and Murphy would lead them through a successful counterattack. This man was just a real-life John Wick. Murphy would continue leading his men even after all of this. The reduction of the Colmar Pocket, the crossing of the Rhine, the advance into southern Germany, and operations towards Austria. On February 16, 1945, less than a month after his Medal of Honor moment, Murphy would be promoted to first lieutenant. He was still only 19 years old. After Germany's surrender in 1945, Murphy would finally return stateside as a national hero. Newspapers would cover his story nationwide. He would appear in magazines, be a part of war bond events, and the masses turned out to see him. At only 20 years old, he had become one of the most famous and decorated soldiers in America. On June 2, 1945, in Salzburg, Austria, Murphy would receive his Medal of Honor. It was presented by Lieutenant General Alexander Patch. During his Medal of Honor ceremony, he would also receive the Legion of Merit. Murphy would be contacted by actor and producer James Cagney. Cagney invited Murphy to Hollywood and offered to help him break into the film industry. Cagney was at first taken aback at how worn down Murphy was. He let him stay at his residence until he was able to regain some size and color. From here, Cagney would pay Murphy $150 a week, so long as he attended acting classes. Over the course of the next 20 years, Murphy would appear in over 40 films, doing particularly well in Western-style films. In 1955, Murphy starred as himself in the film of his autobiography, To Hell and Back. The movie became one of the highest-grossing films of the decade. Behind the scenes, Murphy was fighting a different battle, though. He was suffering from what we know as today as PTSD, but back then it was known as battle fatigue. Murphy would sleep with a pistol under his pillow and had to use medication to help himself sleep. However, he would become addicted to the medicine. He would notice this. He would lock himself in a motel for a week to kick the habit. Murphy would openly speak about his PTSD. He wanted to use his fame to bring attention to the struggles that veterans faced when returning from war. Murphy would also continue to serve his country in the Texas National Guard. From here, he would rise to the rank of major and be involved for years. Murphy would pass away on May 8, 1971, following a plane crash in Virginia. He would be buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. And more than 80 years after the battles of World War II, the name Audie Murphy still stands amongst the greatest heroes America has ever produced. That's it. That's the short story of Audie Murphy. From a child that hunted to put food on the table for his family, to a farm worker to help support his family, to the most decorated World War II soldier ever, to actor, to author, and to breeding and racing horses. There's nothing this man couldn't do, and do dang good.